So this is SANDDAO Podcast 32. I actually didn't expect to be doing this one so soon. That's I had one later tonight at 8 p.m. and okay, and that one's still going on. So in about 3 hours, I'll be doing podcast number 33, and that one will be on the reaction to the DAO article on Medium that posted a few days ago. So this one here. But in the meantime, there was a surprise announcement today. And that surprise announcement was the new community manager for the Sandbox DAO. It is none other than the Kunta MC, otherwise known as Kunta. And I wanted to do a podcast episode on it before things get a little any more crazy than they already are. So, go. So without further ado, we are going to do a reaction to a few things that I put together after that announcement was made. Today's episode is about DAO news and some commentary behind those DAO news. Disclaimer, I do not represent the Sandbox Game or the Sandbox Foundation, which is a DAO. I'm not your financial or legal advisor, and nothing I say is to be taken as financial or legal advice. When I say the word SIP, I mean Sandbox Improvement Proposal. When I say the word DAO, I mean the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And when I say SandFam, as I just did an episode on this a few days ago called The Intro to Sandbox Ecosystem, where I go in depth into what the Sandbox ecosystem is. And part of that was the definition of SandFam. And it's this long list of contributors and participants in the Sandbox ecosystem. If you're interested in that, it's not that long. I summarized it. Go to SandDAO Podcast 31. So that's SandFam, which is everyone in the community, from the gamers to creators to landowners, token holders, and more, who participates in the daily exchange of the people, products, and purpose of Sandbox. And that'll be my running definition from now on. Scoreboard, nothing's changed. SIPs are currently on hold until Cyril and the rest of the admin team have gone through all the DAO interviews. Checkbook has not changed. 15% of the 15.5 million SAN budget has been spent on SIPs. And we're still at 211,000 token holders, 2,200 voters casting 9,200 votes. My name's Lanzer. I am the podcast host for SandDAO Podcast, and I am also a landowner and and president of MetaWorlds. We've published 2 experiences, Floor Droppers and Lobby Defense, and Floor Droppers is in Alpha Season 4, so it will be releasing later on this week, I believe. So let's get into why we are here today. Why am we covering this today? We're covering this because on October 14th, today, the DAO admin team announced the new communications manager, which is Kunta. And there's been a long road since the DAO was originally announced on May 28th of this year. And since then, about 5 months ago, a long procession of SIPs, AMAs, podcasts, and different Twitter Spaces engagement teams, all sorts of stuff has happened since then. And I've kept track of most of the big stuff, the AMAs by the admin team, the SIPs that have closed, how we got to where we were on what's passed and what hasn't, and then more recently, some stuff that's generated more podcasts that's happening today and later on is when the DAO opened up delegation applications. I covered that in podcast number 28 earlier this month. And then the DAO admin team posted an article on the way ahead, how they interpreted progressive decentralization. That's the one I'm covering later tonight. in about 3 hours. And then today, the DAO team announces the new communications manager, which is the subject of today. So it all starts when I notice a post by Cyril on the announcement thread. He normally posts here now bi-weekly, where he goes over the normally goes over the queue, what's been happening, what's up next, and all sorts of stuff like that. He'll normally post where the sips are in the process and what is he working on. And one of the things he's been working on for a while is the little bit hard to see, I guess, but the DAO ambassador, excuse me, the community manager hire. So that was been shown done for a couple now, but now we're seeing the fruits of that when he posted here, Bobby Kunta. And expect an intro post for him today, followed by a video and all of that. So this was Kunta's introduction post, how he's been a gamer since the 80s, a TSP land and sandbox holder since 2020, and a sand staker since it was an option. He's proud to be part of a great community, and he's been an ambassador since 2020. So, some of his goals: serve as a conduit of information in both directions between the community and the DAO team. This will include clarifying the mission of the DAO in the context of the broader success of the larger sandbox ecosystem, clarifying expectations around SIPs, offering more transparency in the centralized decision-making process and DAO operations, providing a timeline for clarity around the DAO's plan to progressive decentralization. Great. Looking forward to that one. And improving education engagement with the community at large. Goal number two, make sure all community concerns are aired and given fair consideration. Good luck, Kunta. There is a lot. There is a lot of concerns that have been aired, and I have every faith and confidence in you. Number three, while remaining personally objective and mostly neutral, I have some questions about that one. Still advocating for the community on popular positions. Okay. Interested to hear how you're going to do that. I think oh, he answered. Okay, so we'll get to that. Actually, I'll just go and say it now. So I said I was excited to join the team. Something popped up. Can you please clarify where your communication manager position sits? Is it part of the Sandbox Game company or the Sandbox DAO Foundation? And Kunta replied back 10 minutes ago, he works for the Sandbox DAO. Okay, so he works for the foundation, which is a separate legal entity and will be the subject of a podcast episode later on this week when I deep dive into the flowcharts, the relationships between the Sandbox Game, the Sandbox Foundation, and everything in between. Number 4. Goal number 4. Stimulate constructive internal conversations. Work with the community to create SIPs. Goal 5. Work with the community to create SIPs that advance the TSP ecosystem at large. I wonder what that means, because normally the SIP authors are responsible for that. So what does work with the community mean to create SIPs? Okay. Then here's a video introducing myself to my fellow SandFam on our new YouTube channel. Awesome. We're going to watch that here in a second. And we're going to host a weekly office hours podcast event where you can join us and ask questions. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Great. Great. I am looking forward to that. That's going to be, that's been missing. And half the reason why this podcast that I'm doing right now exists, because there was none of that when we started. It was just a few AMAs and then relative silence from the DAO admin team, special counsel, and the advisory board members. They each have their own lives, but there was no communication. And in that silence, a lot of resentment, bitterness, suspicion, mistrust bred in its place. And when I said earlier to Kunta that when goal number 2, I read goal number 2, which was make sure all the community concerns are aired and given fair consideration. I said, good luck. That was because of that exact silence and all of that negativity that built up since then. And if you're following Twitter hashtags, if you're following the DAO discussion channel on the Sandbox's Discord, you would see this happening in real time. And in many of my podcasts, I cover that sort of stuff. Um, as neutral as I can. When I interview SIP authors, they express their frustration. When I interview community members, they express their frustration. All of that's happening. And what I see out of this post right here is that Kunta is going to dive headfirst into it. And you know what? I'm already giving you claps, Kunta, if you're watching this. I'm already happy to see that you will be engaging this head on. It's going to hit you. All that avalanche of stuff is going to hit you. And if you are as, and I believe that you are as courageous and as steadfast in confronting this with us, I have every confidence that we will end up in a positive place. But you're going to have to slog through a lot of negativity, and you're going to have to eat it because you will be the embodiment of all the frustrations that have been building up. And if you can, the good news is if you can stomach it, if you can get through it, then on the other side is faith, trust, and participation by the SandFam community, of which you are a member and have been since 2020. So that's exciting to see. A well-known SandFam member. I haven't personally interacted a lot with Kunta, but I have a little bit, and my interactions were positive. So I'm happy. I'm very happy to see that. So yeah, pretty exciting. We're going to now get into the video. Watch the video that Kunta posted on the new Sandbox DAO YouTube channel. So here it is, the new channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. This is where new stuff is going to be posted. Here we go.
Hey, SandFam, what's up? I'm Bobby Kunta. I'm the new communications lead at the Sandbox DAO. So I want to take a minute and introduce myself. I know many of you,
Hey, Kunta. I'm glad you're here.
I hope to meet soon, talking with a lot of you in one-to-one chats already. A sand holder.
That's cool. That's very cool. I did not one-to-one with Kunta until a few hours ago. I sent him a DM on Twitter, and he responded back, and we're gonna try and coordinate as best we can, like on the podcast that he's gonna be starting, the one that I'm 32 episodes in already, and and so that's really cool that he's already engaged one-on-one. And as a previous SandFam member, I'd expect nothing less. So I'm so happy that he's plugged right in.
I'm a sand staker. I've been a land holder since early 2020.
Staker, landholder, landowner, and what was that? Sandholder. So early 2020. That's cool. Yeah, I think I saw a post from him on Discord in like March of 2020, I believe. And when I was looking at the profile, yeah, I've only been in since December of 2021, so he's got about a year and a half on me.
I've been an ambassador for the last 4 years.
Even better, he's an ambassador. So I haven't personally experienced much with Kunta up until recently in the DAO when we started exchanging a few forum posts every now and again. But being an ambassador for the past 4 years tells me that he kind of knows what's going on. So I looked up his DAO profile just to refresh myself, and I saw his comment on the recent ambassador SIP. And I'll show that after this when we do a little bit of a dive. But happy to see that he's been an ambassador and he's been involved to some degree or another in SandFam.
Mostly just making posts and fielding DMs. I've been a member of Blockchain Game Alliance for almost 4 years now, working
Okay.
in blockchain game.
Blockchain Game Alliance. I'm not too familiar with it, other than it's part of um, Seb's initiative, I think, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'd be interested to know. Actually, I should just write him a post, a response later on. Yeah, I'll make a response later on. What is the blockchain alliance, and how does it relate to your position? Let's go ahead and start putting that in the VOD channel. All right, so at 32 seconds in, and let's see what it's all about. Just a few questions.
Gaming for 5 years, over five. Casual gamer since the 80s, Atari.
Okay, cool. So we can be assured that he's got a gamer background. That probably everything from Super Mario to, I don't know, Halo and a bunch of other mainstay games that most gamers who's been gaming since then have probably touched. Counter Strike.
Active in a few other DAOs. Mostly silent in the TSP forums, but that's
Okay,
obviously going to change quite a bit. So, as the new
cool.
communications lead with the DAO, what does that really mean? I'm going to be representing both the DAO's core team and the community. I'll be in the hot seat really between both, opening communication channels, making sure everybody's voice is heard and that everything is understood. I've been quiet.
That is great to hear. I'm happy to hear that. Let's hear that one more time.
Communications lead with the DAO. What does that really mean? I'm going to be representing both the DAO's core team and the community. I'll be in the hot
Good.
seat really between both, opening
Great.
communication channels, making sure everybody's voice is heard and that everything
Wonderful.
is understood. I've been
That's
quiet
exactly
so
what I
far,
would want,
mostly in
and I think a
forum
lot of the community
Discord, but I've been
wants.
keeping up with people's concerns and the ongoing conversations.
If you have Kunta, of which there are many, it's gonna be quite the job to undertake, because a lot of it has been building for quite some time and it's been unaddressed.
Been messaging with some of you guys already.
Yeah,
So, um,
I'm one of them.
what I hope to do with the
I'm
DAO
glad to
team,
hear that you've been
I'm
doing
going
it with
to say
others.
what I want to do with the DAO team and what I want to do with the SandFam, the community out there. So, with the DAO team, my goals are to clarify the mission of the DAO in the context of the broader success of the larger sandbox ecosystem. So, to
Okay. No, I don't have any questions there. I'm interested to know what he wants to say about that and what he's going to clarify.
just make it clearer what that success could look like and
Okay.
clarify expectations around the SIPs, the sandbox improvement proposals.
That I just saw a post earlier today from Cyril about the new SIP process. I'm gonna be doing another podcast on that one, and a little bit going a little bit into it into today's later podcast, podcast 33, which will be the Medium article talks about it a little bit, and I had some notes that I observed there. So I assume when he says that he's going to be clarifying it, he's just going to be kind of recounting it and asking questions of the admin team to relay to us, so that we have more an understanding of what to expect, because they did post quite a bit of do's and don'ts for the SIPs, the new SIP wave. I have 6 already in there, so it's unclear what is going to be applied retroactively. And yeah, like my SandDAO podcast SIP, waiting to go to vote. My revenue options SIP, the Builders Challenge Working Group, and a few others.
So, the third is to offer more transparency in the centralized decision making.
Finally. Oh my gosh, finally. Right now, the decision making process has been quite centralized around the DAO admin team and the special counsel, and the community SandFam has just been kind of along for the ride. So more transparency around this centralized decision making process. Thank you, thank you.
Process and how DAO operations are being carried out.
That has been one of the biggest gripes and criticisms of the community. We don't know how DAO operations have been carried out. It's been largely shielded from us.
um, and also just provide clarity around the decentralization of the DAO over time and what that could look like as we work together towards it.
Great.
And improving just education and engagement with the community at large so that we're all on the same page, working together towards a
Excellent.
healthy, stronger community of creators, gamers, investors, and more. Because
Love it.
frankly, in my opinion, which I was slow to share with you as I'll keep my opinions to myself, try and remain neutral. But in my
Sure. I mean, the way you've described that you want to be neutral, which I think you mean to say is not too heavy on only spouting, you know, the centralized opinion and the towing the party line of the Sandbox Foundation and all of that. And you also been an ambassador, so I trust that you have figured out how to manage that position from the get go. Because as I understand it from Kristen and Uncle Grumpy, that the ambassadors aren't exactly employees of, they're more like volunteer freelancers of the Sandbox game. So you've had to kind of already uh, strike a good balance between what of the party line in the Sandbox game you're required to toe, and then being able to form your own opinions and voice them, as we see happening and has happened quite a bit the past couple months, when a lot of the ambassadors were critical and objected to the new Sandbox Ambassador SIP that passed because the Sandbox wallet voted for it. Otherwise, it would not have passed. So I say voted for it. They voted 33% yes, 33% no, and 33% abstained. It already had a yes vote, but it would not have passed quorum. So it was only about 50% of the 30 million that it required. And it would not have passed. And then the Sandbox voted with its 27 million wallet and it passed. And it hasn't voted on the SIP since, or before, up until SIP 5. So from SIP 5 to SIP 11 and 12, it did not vote. SIPs 11 and 12, it did vote. And then SIPs 13 and 14, or 14 and 15, which were mine and the disability hiring program, it did not vote. And SIPs have been on hold since because of delegations. So kind of I'm looking forward to seeing the criteria for its voting and why it was voted for that, but not other stuff. My SIP didn't vote. Excuse me. My SIP did not pass because it didn't reach quorum, and it was the one that happened right after Sandbox voted for its own SIP. So that's sort of clarity. And when you say neutrality that you want to approach it with, I'm super excited to hear that. I think that's going to be good for the community to hear what happened there, and and trust that you're approaching it with some level of neutrality to where it doesn't feel like you're hiding anything. Like, that's really what it's come down to. If we start to feel that you're hiding something, or that you're just, like, issuing a prepared statement and then there's no discussion behind it, that's very that's just more of what we've been seeing up until now. So I'm happy to see, and I trust you when you say that you wanna approach it with a different lens. I think that's great. I'm very happy to hear that.
my opinion, the SandFam's quite a bit bigger than some of us perceive.
Absolutely. And my podcast 31 was intro to the SandFam ecosystem, of which I cover what the totality of what I think is SandFam. And I think that's worth showing you the ending graphic that I created. So this right here, this was page 1 of the Sandbox ecosystem. The SandFam, under the way I described it, was the Sandbox community made up of gamers, game makers, voxel artists, landowners, sandholders, DAO delegates, participants, which were like, could be anywhere from brokers, but people who weren't part of the above, and the Sandbox team. And then on page 2, I showed the businesses like the partners, Animoca Brand, SandFam, the Sandbox company, and its partners, many of which were like Gucci, Deadmau5, Atari. And then below that was the DAO, which are the voters, delegates, Sandbox Foundation, the councils, and the working groups. But though all of those people, I can't really think of anyone who isn't part of the page 1, whether they're a landowner, a sandholder, some sort of participant or game maker. So that's why I said page two was just extra visibility into the SandFam, where SandFam to me is gamers, game makers, voxel artists, landowners, sandholders, DAO delegates, participants, and the Sandbox team. I think that covers everyone as SandFam. So, uh, 31, it's under an hour. Check it out.
There's a lot of people who, are very silent, maybe not even in the Discord or
Oh my gosh, there's so many people who are silent and not in the Discord. They're in the Discord, but you'll see them only react to our messages. Like they'll hit the thumbs up button, but they're not a DAO forum member. We've never seen them, and yeah,
never use the word SandFam on Twitter, but
right,
they're invested in some way emotionally or financially.
absolutely
Anyways, what I want to do in my work with the SandFam is make sure that all of the concerns are heard, that they're aired, they're given fair consideration. That doesn't mean everyone's going to get their way all the time, but everybody does have to have their say. That's what democratization looks like. So we can even do some polling. I'm going to start taking
great.
notes from
I'm so happy to hear that.
meetings, make sure that we have,
It has not felt like that coming from the DAO admin team. I don't know if that was by design or if that just was because it was so overwhelming that they weren't expecting the level of involvement that was sought out by the community members like me and others. But it feels like we haven't been consulted on much of anything. And you'll see that later on in a few hours when I do my SANDDAO podcast 33, the DAO Medium article that they posted. You'll see that come out because I combed through it and it feels like they just continued on with what they expected and in some ways incorporated feedback, but I'm not sure that that feedback came from the SandFam community.
capture people's opinions that are less vocal in the forums as well. Two, I'm going to advocate for the community on popular opinions. I mean, when the community has a view about something and feels maybe it's not being heard or given enough air,
Yep.
that's my role
That's
to make
happening
sure
a
that
lot
the
right
DAO
now.
team hears you.
Thank you.
Three, stimulate constructive conversations on our forum. Make sure that we're staying guided towards constructive.
I think that smile you just saw him give was probably because of the most recent back and forth that's been happening on the SAO ambassador program. A lot of dissent, a lot of criticism. But other than that, the discussions have been pretty tame. Some people kind of have a cynical view of the DAO, and they voice that in the DAO forums. That's to be expected given the way things have progressed so far up until this point. Of which I really hope Kunta approaches it and turns that and turns them into advocates. It's going to take a little bit of convincing. It's going to take some turning around of the faith uh, and mistrust that's felt. But I think Kunta's approaching it from the right direction, which is he wants it to be constructive. Great. Just my advice, Kunta, don't banhammer people. You're gonna see the full wrath of people who want you to prove that the DAO should be trusted and that they should approach it with anything other than it being a joke. Please resist the urge. My opinion. Please resist the urge to banhammer people. They want to believe. They're here voicing this because they care. And they're just dismayed that it hasn't happened the way that most of us have thought. And you can see SandDAO podcast 1 and 2 to see some of those community reactions. A lot of it still exists in that same way that was described with my guests there.
Growth, long-term sustainability and
Sure,
building something awesome.
absolutely.
Four, work
Most
with
of
the
us love
community
that.
to craft SIPs that advance the sandbox ecosystem at large.
That at large, I think, is a loaded word. I think right there, Kunta is reflecting the probably Cyril's position on the way he wants the DAO to exist, with the DAO admin team to exist, and in a few hours you'll see what I mean, because a lot of it's loaded in the DAO Medium article that I'm about to go over. That at large, some I think translates into long term, which is a statement that Cyril has been talking about for quite some time. And I'll wait till podcast number 33 before I get into that.
So just the whole SIP process and how we can improve that and streamline it so that there's a limited curation needed from the core team.
I don't know what that means. That almost seems like it's a review to the review to the review. So right now, when you SIP, when you submit a SIP, and I've submitted 6 of them, so I've seen this go down in multiple ways. It goes to the DAO team, and there's this extended back and forth. Mine has been going on for 3 months now, uh, s- and before my first one went to vote a few weeks ago. So it took over 2 to 3 months from my first sip to reach vote. I don't know what he means when he says he's going to help so that there's less of that with the DAO admin team. I thought that was the whole reason why the DAO admin team existed, was to facilitate that process so that when it gets to the council, they I don't know, maybe the goal is to render more positives. I'm not sure because the when it gets to the SIP council, they thumbs up it, they thumbs down it, or they neutral it, and it goes to vote. So there's no review there, but the DAO admin team reviews what I submit as a SIP author. So what review or what is he going to be doing in order to make it to where there's less curation? I'm not sure. I'm interested to find out.
So with all that said, like I want you guys to all know, I realize we're collectively like we have a lot of work to do here to make
Oh
sure
yeah.
everybody knows that they're respected, represented, and that we are growing healthily. So there's
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Kunta. I think that is exactly the right approach. And that's where I recommended you don't banhammer people when the avalanche of all the emotions since May 28th come crashing down on you because you are now the community and the communications manager. So you're going to get it. I'm so sorry. You're about to get both barrels. And I want to be there with you. I've been trying to, through my own interviews with with advisory board members and council members, special council members, to show the community that's not just some Illuminati thing going on in the background. Although there are some really unanswered questions about the connections going on, and my podcast later on this week about the Sandbox Foundation, and has been spurred by some things that are happening in the ApeCoin DAO. So um, these things need to be brought out into the open. That's the transparency that is the lack of transparency that has resulted in a lot of mistrust and people just bowing out of the Sandbox DAO as SandFam because of this lack of transparency and openness. So the fact that you're approaching it with the that they're respected and represented so that we can grow a healthy DAO, that is cool. I think that is exactly the right attitude that I would hope a communications manager from the DAO admin team approaches it.
we are growing healthily. So there's a lot of passion at SandFam, a lot of emotions attached to different
Yeah.
aspects of the DAO, myself included.
Yes,
But
there
like I
is.
told you, I will be doing my best to remain objective, neutral, acting as a mediator in the exchange of ideas.
Wonderful.
Our DAO is really in very early stages.
Very early stages. It's been going on for 5 months. So not brand new. It's not infant, but it is, DAOs grow fast. If you've been in other DAOs, they grow very fast. The Ethereum DAO has only been in existence for I think 3 or 4 years, and then ApeCoin DAO has been in existence for I think 2 years. So, and ApeCoin DAO has over 400 proposals at this point, and it used to have $1 billion budget. Now it's a little over 100 million. So it grows fast, it acts fast. So while we're in early stages, we're no longer an infant, especially now that we have what 14, 15. How many do we have now? We have 16 SIPs have been closed and 15 of them have been voted on. One of them was withdrawn. There was a podcast by with Kirill, Creator First. He was one who withdrew his.
If we work together, we can make this shining case study of the slow, intentional handover of some
The slow intentional handover. Interesting word choice.
decision-making process.
And some decision making processes. Also, an interesting word choice. That kind of tells me that maybe the DAO team's progressive decentralization doesn't include a full handover of decision making processes. It sounds like some. Interested to know what some means.
Of what's really an amazing gaming ecosystem. And if
It
you're
really is
listening to me
amazing.
this long,
If you saw the intro to my podcast 31 that I mentioned a couple times, the intro to Sandbox ecosystem, you'll see just how in depth that ecosystem really is. It's huge. It's got so much to it. The purpose, the products, and the people behind it. This ecosystem is very, and Sandbox, the Alpha Season 4 that's been going on. Oh my gosh, is it a huge improvement from seasons 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion. I think it is so welcoming and very it's positioned very well positioned to onboard a lot of new people and keep them a lot to a greater degree than seasons 1 through 3 has. Whereas 1 through 3 was very much get the quest done and you might not play these ever again. In fact, I haven't played most of them ever again. Season 4 has a lot more mini games, like the one I played a couple days ago with the making the chefs in the kitchen thing. You can play that over and over again. Floor droppers, that's going to be released by us in a few days. That's meant to be played over and over again as a mini game as well. I'm starting to see a lot more repeatable experiences rather than your one and done RPG like thing that you never play again after you play it once. Season 4 is great, and I've been covering it 24/7, really, with reruns and all sorts of stuff. Let's see. Who is not Jackie Chan asked, who are the SIPs directed at mostly, the devs or administrators? How far can a SIP go? That's a great question. Not Jackie Chan. They are supposed to be directed at the SandFam, the SIP authors, which are the token holders and the landowners. And they're the authors, and they can author it to whatever they'd like, supposedly. But as I found out myself, some SIPs get a lot more scrutiny than others. And I submitted 6, and they have been waiting for. Let's see, what does the day counter say last? My longest SIP, 117 days. So divided by 30, that's been almost 4 months. My SIPs have been waiting almost 4 months. So it's been going that's a long back and forth. And my SIP number 1 was the one that's been waiting 4 months. It closed a couple weeks ago. The one right after that is 3.6 months. So long, long time. A lot of back and forth. And most of those are waiting on the DAO admin team to respond. So all of them are waiting for the DAO team to respond. That's what we mean. It's been a slow process. So, all right, back to Bobby. Bobby Kunta.
processes of what's really an amazing gaming ecosystem. And if you've listened to me this long, I don't know how far I am into recording this, but if you've listened this long, obviously you love
I
the
like him
Sandbox.
already. I've never seen him. I never heard him speak before. I've never seen him on camera. I already like him. I like the vibe. I like the attitude. I like the way he's presenting himself, and it comes across as very humble and very sincere, and I love it. And my only concern at this point is that sincerity that he's bringing to the table reflected on the rest of the DAO admin team. I've met a few of them, and I really like them. Just the actions that I've seen out of the DAO admin team. I don't know. I don't know what I'm seeing, which is why I want that transparency. I really want that transparency out of the team so I can match the actions, which seem very centralized and in some cases exclusive. Um, it kind of excludes part of the community to what I'm seeing Kunta say he wants to bring, which is transparency, openness, and the attitude that I would expect to see from an ambassador turned communications manager. So happy, very happy he's here, and I love the approach.
So we share that passion and we want to grow it
I see
together.
that. I
So
see that he shares a passion.
I'll only be putting in a few hours each day.
Okay, that's important to know. So the expectation here is that he's only putting in a few hours each day. Cool. That means he's not going to be able to get to us full time like you'd expect of a full time person. That's fine. I'm really happy that he said that up front. I'm so happy that he revealed that. That makes it to where he's going to get both barrels, but I won't expect him to address it right away.
Personally until about mid-November, so about another month or so, before I'm moving into a full-time role with the DAO. So
That's cool. That's great, Kunta. So about mid-November, he'll be hitting full time. I've been, spoiler alert for 33. I've been very interested to know what the salaries are. The salary for the advisory board, which is zero, by the way, and the salary for the special counsel, which is 100,000 sand a year, has been revealed to us, but not the DAO admin team. We don't know how much they're paid. We don't know who they report to, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to know that because all of those resources are coming out of the DAO's budget. Which budget, I don't know. I think the operations budget, but I haven't been able to do a deep dive into that yet. I just know they're spending DAO's funds. So I don't think there's a SIP for it. I think SIPs 1 to 2 maybe can be construed as we're using DAO resources for it, but we don't know how much. And so that's a big question mark that needs to be answered if you're going to run a decentralized DAO. That's the sort of transparency I would expect to see. But as far as a great as far as an introduction, awesome. Kunta. Awesome. Love it.
give me a weekday or two to get back to you, but I really want
Sure.
to encourage anybody listening to this, shoot me a DM on the Sandbox DAO socials and we'll open up
Excellent.
that communication because
Love it.
that's really what my role is all about is
And
trying
I'm
to
so
make
glad you
sure
said
that
that. I'm so glad that's your approach. That is exactly what I would expect your role to be about. And you seem like you're embracing it full on.
the communication in both directions is open and improving constantly. So we're going to roll out a
Good.
weekly office hours kind of event, a video podcast thing. It's going to maybe take some different formats from week to week,
Cool.
starting in late October, probably on YouTube, where I'm going to drop this video. This will be the first video on our new YouTube channel. This will be a place where you can access me directly as a representative of the DAO team. And we're also going to invite other ecosystem
That's so
stakeholders
cool.
that DAO participants might have an interest in asking some questions. So whether those are the special counsel, the advisory
Yes.
board, SIP authors,
Yes.
some investors in the sandbox, whatever
Cool.
the community takes an interest in continuing our conversations.
And I don't feel threatened by that at all. I've been interviewing advisory board members. I've interviewed two of them so far. I intend to interview all of them if they'll let me. I've interviewed one special council member, Seb, and I intend to interview all of them. I've reached out to all but one, and only outside of Seb, only one has responded back to me. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get them on the podcast. There seems to be a hesitancy. The rest of them I haven't heard back from yet, so I'm not sure what that hesitancy is or what it's rooted in, or why they wouldn't want to hear for us to hear their perspective. Maybe they are afraid or they don't trust that I'll handle it responsibly or that I won't attack them. I have no intention of doing that at all. You can look at the past 3 interviews I've had with Mia Bao, Loretta Chen, and Seb to see what it is that I would approach it as. I give them the benefit of the doubt. All I want to do is learn about them. I want to know who they are. I want to know what they believe in, and what sort of passions they bring to the team. Like that's what I want to see, and I know the community wants to see that too. And because we haven't seen that, a lot of mistrust has been built. It's like they came on board and we haven't heard much. So what are we supposed to believe? Well, for Mia Bao, Loretta Chen, and Seb, you can see that, and I think it's pretty clear that they're not involved in any sort of schemes or they're there for the right reasons, and I love that. we should see that for the rest of them. And so I've reached out to most of the special counsel. I'm finishing up my kind of research and watching interviews of Shannon Snow. So I'll be reaching out to her in the near future to try and do a podcast with her, and then I'll finish out researching the rest of the advisory board, the ones I haven't reached out to yet, which is there's only a couple left. And so I'm reaching out as best I can. If they respond back and do an interview, then great. If not, I hope they do it on the new Sandbox DAO with the new Sandbox DAO Communication Manager with Kunta. It's a win in my book, no matter who they do it with. Just I'm the only concern I have doing it on the communication manager is the propensity for the Sandbox DAO admin team to handle it with overly sensitive kitty gloves. What I mean by that is not really asking the questions that the sandbox community really needs to know. Like, what is it that they want to accomplish before their re-elections? What sort of passions do they bring to the team? What are they? What are they? What is it that they really want to bring? What is their expertise? And what is their criteria for voting positive, negative, or neutral? That's the sort of important stuff that SIP authors have to deal with in the dark right now because we don't know. We just get a up, down, or neutral. And I think that should be a little bit more clarity there. And I think it would be important to know who it is that's leading us. Loretta Chin did a wonderful job. I loved hearing her perspective. It was very clear why she was on the advisory board. Same thing with Mia Bao. It was clear why she was on the advisory board and what they hope to bring and what they're doing for the sandbox community. It's clear from Seb as well, but it's not clear from the rest. There were a couple AMAs with Shannon, and I think there was one with Frederic Montignon, who was there briefly for an AMA, but we didn't really learn much about what their goals were. So, what it is that they were doing on the Sandbox Special Council. So that's sort of stuff that I was trying to explore with them, so that the community no longer has to guess. And if I'm not able to do that with them, but Bobby Kunta is great. There's no there's no hard feelings there. I would love it just for the community to learn. So, in terms of his and my lane, I'm gonna keep on podcasting as best I can. I'm gonna, like when when Kunta said, the wanting to get in on one-on-ones, that's gonna be my discussions with him is there, is there are there different lanes that he and I should stick to maximize our coverage of the DAO? Is there a lot of overlap that he expects? Like how should we approach this as SandFam participants in the DAO? And I'm interested in a healthy DAO and a constructive DAO, just like he is. And that's one of the main reasons why I have this podcast doing this to give the community some insight into stuff because up until Bobby's announcement today, there wasn't much at all. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited. Yeah. All right, let's get to the rest of the video.
So, with that said, I'll be sending out a form to field questions for topic discussions for
Excellent.
our first podcast with you
I
sometime
have
in the
so
next.
many. And please, I would love to be on the Sandbox DAO podcast. And I would love for Bobby to be on the SandDAO podcast. Just all that cross pollination, that's nothing but more awareness and more content we can push out to the larger DAO ecosystem. That's ApeCoin DAO, Mocha DAO. There's so much going on out there outside of our DAO that our cross pollination is nothing but goodness. It's not a competition. It is not a competition between myself and the Sandbox DAO. My podcast and their podcast can coexist because my community hits something different and I can do things that the Sandbox DAO podcast cannot do things. I can cover things in a different way than they can. I can cover things faster in some cases. And deeper. I have different connections than Kunta does. It's not a competition. We are one family. And if Kunta covers the same thing I do, great. If he wants to cover the ecosystem, wonderful. I think it only adds to the discussion. And I feel strongly about that. And I hope Kunta does too. I did not get that impression up until this point from the Sandbox DAO admin team. It seemed more like a competition, and I really didn't want it to be. I just want us to be a healthy DAO. That's what this is about. Okay. The personalities, I only care so much as people who are in it for the right reasons, who are in it to build a healthy DAO. And if you're here to do that, you've got my vote. If you're not here to do that, you don't. And I'll just leave it right there. Okay. Let's keep going.
Few days. Like I said, we might switch up formats, but we'll consistently be offering updates. We'll be answering questions. So if you've got questions, you've got ideas, you've got suggestions for a topic that we might broach or guests that we might invite, shoot me a DM.
I have so many. I'll give you my own list. I have a list of SamDAO podcasts that I want to cover and have covered. I'll give you the whole list. I'll introduce you to anyone that you need introducing to. Dude, just cover it. Cover it all. I will cover it. And if there's, if it works to both of us, then we'll cover different things. If we want to cover the same thing, fine. I'm good either way. Whatever contributes to the DAO. I'm SandFam. You're SandFam. Let's be SandFam.
DAO on X, and we'll address these tough decisions, these tough
Good.
topics together head on.
Great.
All right. Well, that's about it. I just wanted to introduce myself real quick. I'm the Kunta MC.
I'm glad you did.
Kunta, the new communications.
I'm glad, Kunta.
Sandbox DAO, and really looking forward to opening up these comms channels with a lot of you guys I've seen in the forum. So shoot me a DM. Let's stay in touch. Big things together. Love y'all, SandFam.
And you know what? I feel that. I feel that from him. I think he really means it. Clearly, he's been SandFam for a while. He was SandFam before he was a ambassador, and he was an ambassador before he became communications manager. I like the way he's saying he's going to approach things. All I want to do at this point, because I don't really have much interaction or relationship with Kunta other than very recently, and it was very positive. I just want to see it play out. I want to see it play out the way he says, because it's, as the communications manager, he reports in some way now. He confirmed that he is an employee of the Sandbox DAO. So exactly, not Jackie Chan. SandFam, let's go, he says in the chat. But exactly, I feel very passionate about that. I want a good, I want us to proceed forward in a healthy way, learning lessons from other DAOs, but not falling into the same traps of small groups controlling everything. So, cool. Cool. What an intro. What an intro, Kunta. So, what questions did I have? Oh man, forgot some of them. I should have been writing them down. I'll write them down after. Go back through and write them down. There were questions like, what does this word mean? What does that phrase mean? All that sort of stuff. That I'll post in his intro channel, like I normally do for other stuff. And other questions already asked. What was one of the questions in the community? It was not Jackie Chan. You asked some pretty good questions. Thank you for that. I'll go back and put them in here, but it's something to the effect of, what were SIPs for? Who are they for? So we did answer that. And if anyone has any other questions before I look to raid someone, I'm going to be playing another SandFam, play another Season 4 daily challenge again today. Let's look at in about 2 hours. 2 hours, I'm going to be doing episode 33, which is a reaction to the DAO article on Medium. I posted it everywhere. I posted all my thoughts and questions. I'm going to be going over them because it is important. To me, is very important. That is sort of the reaction. I'm sorry. That is the update that we've been looking for. And I have questions and comments, and I'd like to go over. And then I'm going to be doing another episode probably in a couple of days, maybe later on this week. Cyril also posted an update to the SIP process. There's now a form that you fill out instead of an email that you send. And I'm going to go through all that. And then when I go through it, I'm going to do a podcast episode on it to update everyone on the new process. Then I'm going to do this big one. This big one that just came about as of a couple days ago. I did this. This is one of the first things I did, a review of the Sandbox DAO Foundation, the Constitution, articles, and memos. I read them. I read the memo of incorporation, the article of incorporation, the Constitution, everything. I read it all. And I come from like a contract writing, negotiating background, business mind. I have a lot of experience in that sort of stuff. So I read it from that lens, and there are some things I needed to point out. Um, but I didn't plan on doing that episode for quite some time. It was just kind of like a slow cook. However, this past weekend at BOTB, Bulls on the Block, which is one of the spaces here that I attend, and where SIP authors can go to, delegations, that's where delegates are, different things throughout the week. This past Saturday at BOTB, an ApeCoin DAO proposal to eliminate workflows turned into a larger conversation about visibility and accountability. And what's interesting is that visibility and accountability uh, turned to questions about discourse management, which Sandbox uses, discourse, and the ApeCoin DAO Foundation, also called the Ape Foundation, which is structured very, very similarly to the Sandbox Foundation. And that might be because some of the special council members of the Sandbox also were special council members on Ape Coin. I think Yatsu, I think that's what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of insight into how the foundation for Ape is run, but the way they described it at BOTB, it sounds very similar to the way Sandbox DAO Foundation is run. So I'm going to move that up to this week and go through all the relationships, go through the flowcharts I've figured out and the things I've noted and the questions. I posted that on the DAO forums as well, those questions ahead of when I'm going to go give the DAO team chance to answer. And if not, I'm just going to go over what I found and show you all what I found out. For Sandbox Spaces, if you're interested in, oh, I need to now add the Sandbox DAO. I now need to add the Sandbox DAO YouTube channel to this, don't I? I sure do. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add Sandbox DAO YouTube channel to this Sandbox Spaces. You can find us, not us, like you can interact with the Sandbox and SandFam through the Discord. There's a DAO channel there. There's also the DAO forums. That's where a lot of people who are active participate in. It's where SIPs go to before they go to the new process. Twitter, there's some hashtags. Hashtag SandFam, hashtag the Sandbox DAO, hashtag the Sandbox Game. And then there's the Sandbox DAO Twitter handle or X handle. On Mondays, there's Mochaverse Hall. So at 9 p.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. CST, and 10 a.m. KST. So that's in a few hours now. Mochaverse Hall has their X space, and then Bulls on the Block does their X space on Saturdays. Captain Chris Jordan, otherwise known as Coffee with Captain, sometimes covers Sandbox things Monday through Friday. Whale members, they are one of the largest landowners in all of SandFam. They have natively digital on Tuesdays. They recently launched a Whale DAO. I proposed something in their DAO to constantly be involved in the Sandbox voting. And then there's SandFam, led by Pickaxe Master. We did a podcast episode with Bruno on SANDDAO. Where are you? SandDAO. There it is. Episode 17, back in August. We did an episode with him. He does monthly videos for SandFam, not just Sandbox DAO, but mostly it's more on the Sandbox game side of things, like studios, artists, that sort of stuff. And that is where, and now we'll add the Sandbox DAO YouTube channel to that list. And there we go. I'm going to find someone to raid. So thank you all for your time. All right, everyone.